Hello everybody, and thank you very much for being here. I'd also like to give a great big thank you to Conny for hosting my exhibition at this fantastic space and doing such a beautiful job of hanging everything and squeezing it all in. I bought a whole bootload of things thinking, oh, we'll only be able to put up half of it. And Connie kept saying, no, bring more, more. So I think pretty well everything got put up, which is wonderful. These are prints, editions and multiples. It's not set up as a retrospective, but in effect it is, in a way. There's works here that go back to 1979 are the first prints, which I'll talk about when I get to the prints a little bit. But what I wanted to try and address as a sort of topic tonight was the relationship between words and images, obviously, between poetry and art, between worded images and imaged words. Seeing the astonishing, is it called a revival or a destruction around here, as East Sydney remanifests into a zone of tall buildings and so on, and thinking about the closure of Waters Gallery by chance with the last day ever tomorrow, I just want to introduce a tiny bit of history there. My first ever exhibition was in 1970 in Adelaide, when Alex Danko, who was a fellow student, we were both aged 20, said, would you like to share my exhibition at Llewellyn Galleries? I said, Alex, I don't make art. He said, but you could. So that was a really fateful statement to begin from there. But the thing is, the first thing that I thought of was to frame poems. I was writing a series of short poems which were a portrait, a multifaceted portrait. And so making my own little frames, I wanted the art audience to actually have to engage with poetry and move their eyes. I mean, we were all reading John Berger. I wasn't studying at art school, I was studying at Flinders in humanities, but I had a lot of friends who were at art school, so I was reading their books. And so having poetry on the wall was really the way I began. And I just wanted to show, I suppose, a tiny example of poetry to prove my cred. And I have one piece which is very relevant. It's called Beyond 2020, which is about Sydney. The developers are eating raw money, shooting out huge holes in the ground. Architects computing blueprints of the bank juggle laptop martinis with projected rents. Town planners click PowerPoints from helicopters, prime cut fillets of prestige CBD. Entire histories are wiped out in a week. Nooks, crannies, layerings of footsteps, whispers, reflections, urgent corridors, all smashed to rubble, whistles and dust. The deep holes wear high fences out of shyness. Narrow slits where pedestrians peer in, see lithe men working, dot high in celestial cranes. Yellow pile drivers on solid sandstone beds are banging steel rods right through to China. The brainwaves of corporate clients for colour schemes and naming rights are fed repeatedly into the small blue screens. Industrial sunsets, absolute waterfronts, the best. Some holes sprout complex foundations and stop, all greys and rust. Those big boys temporarily bust. Nubile futures brokers wink and wave their mobiles. Call in the foreign capital, from the skirts of Mother England to the pants of Uncle Sam to the dark silk suits of post-imperial Japan. China waits. Giant palm trees start arriving like prisoners in trucks. There's sort of not always, it doesn't always end with a pretty sort of moment in my work.
How long ago was that?
I can't remember. I wrote it in 2000 or something like that, but it was called Towards 2020, which is of course rapidly approaching. That book is from a poem called Instant History, which was recently published, and there's a book here which Chris Mansell recently published called Instant History.
No, that one's got
Oh, this is Tommy Ruff. Sorry, getting ahead of myself here. That's a Tommy Ruff. Nicholas Pounder knows all about these and everything else of my work. But you can see that I like publishing. I've tended to replicate, duplicate, and make more of things than could ever be needed or used, really. Because in the poetry world, when I was 18, we were using a Roneo, a Gestetner, and putting out copies of a poetry magazine called Mock. We were doing 300 copies of that. They sold for 30 cents. I must say, I noticed over here the newspaper in the print drawer there from Adelaide in 1978, which I'll show you. The daily newspaper at the time was 12 cents. It would have been the same for the Sydney Morning Herald. So, publications including Love Cat, another plug for Chris. Chris published this book. We photographed the trees by the pool in Hyde Park with all of the scars.
I've done that too.
Have you? Isn't it lovely? So
There's a lot of love hearts.
Oh, yeah.
It's really quite romantic.
It
But
is.
they're gone now.
Have they?
Yeah.
The trees or the...
Wow.
They've been removed. The trees.
We better double the
Yeah.
price.
Wow.
But
weird.
isn't that interesting? So it was like that beyond 2020. You know, nooks,
I thought
grey,
they were beautiful.
nooks, layers smashed into rubble. You know.
Yeah.
But with this, we've put poems reacting to the pictures, and both done essays. And we were just thinking, rather than as an artist book, we might actually rejig this and do it as a book, a normal-sized book. I won't take the time to go through and explain these works in principle. I was trying to stay with the notion of poetry going into art. One of the first things that happened to me was thinking of words within words, and also thinking of how words might go into shapes. In 1968, I took the words, tears are like waves, and to have given all, child weight of love, and set in the Courier font, which is even spaced, they come out as 3 perfect tears. That was done initially on a manual typewriter. The second thing that I tend to do is to iterate and think, how could I do this differently? So that work's been made in cast glass. It's also been done as a large screen print, which I think is in that collection there. There's very few of those prints left. So I love to sort of manifest works out into different scales and different materials, because to me, the works shift in their whole nature through their different iteration. For example, the clock there, you can see that goes around with, if you've solved that already, it does do, dope, not here, rend, end. And I think there's 13 words. So that's a clock, but it's also a watch with open other end, because by chance that has 12 letters. That came from, I had a dog called Maybe, and I was always opening tins of dog food, and I remember one time looking at open other end, written, boldly impressed on the can. It wasn't in a circle, but I just started drawing it and realised that. So a lot of things do begin from paper and from drawing, and then end up made. If I could just point your attention over here to the concrete poems. Concrete poetry has a history going back particularly into the late 1950s, into the 60s. Very famous practitioners like Ian Hamilton Finlay, Scottish, dead now, lived into his 80s. He's well known for his garden at Stony Park. He and his wife took an old abandoned property and turned it into a place full of glades and mysterious, sort of quasi-religious places where he could iterate with the fourth time, anyway, his own poetry. But in some of the first poems I did, it was an interest in these very simple rearrangements. So obviously the love poem goes intersecting, but by adding those extra O's, suddenly there are 2 intersecting arrows, or two sort of directional gestures, as in a relationship, which is held in suspense, but it's a dynamic suspense, again, as in any relationship. And of course, the art, Earth Heart, which I've done I'm very interested in public art. I've done that 5 metres across on Australia House in London, for example. If you go to Lake Macquarie, which has a very beautiful gallery, they have that in a 26-metre version in bricks in the ground. If you're ever up that way, it's a lovely place. They've got a good restaurant, and it's a nice place to visit. obviously another aspect of my work, and the one for which I'm probably best known, are changing road signs. That began in 1979, living in Adelaide and about to leave forever. There was a sign, big blue sign, that said airport with an arrow straight up. And one night I had a stock of reflective tape. One night I climbed up, measured the R, came back home, made an E of the same style, white on the right side square of blue, went back, now it's sort of 3 a.m, checked there's no traffic, and put the E on the sign. And so the next day it was just very nice to see that this was the airport, because the arrow now was pointing up, not along. I didn't take it very seriously, it was just a gesture of leaving Adelaide, really. But when I came back for the Adelaide Festival from Sydney, I hadn't done much to photograph it. It was still there, to my amazement. And I was photographing it, and a man with a toweling hat, bunch of, box under his arm of lunches for his workmates, I assume, wearing his, his overalls, said in that classic laconic Australian manner, "Photographing it, are you?" I said, "Yeah, you know anything about it?" "It's a worker's Christmas present," he said as he walked on. That was one of those epiphanies. It's like, right, yeah, that's what it is. Whether it's art or not, I'll leave for other people to decide, but of course I became interested in shifting the language in road signs, and so it became a whole series called Road Sign. And initially I did change actual signs. I did do Form 1 Planet, and crossing becoming Sing, and Art Start Freeway becoming Art Freeway. But you're risking arrest, and I started to do it more manually. These are all fairly, well, when I say recent, it's the trouble with getting older. You think of 10 years ago as yesterday. These were made 2010, 2012. The City of Sydney actually owns this one. I haven't given it to them yet. Watch for bicycles. Some of them have gone to institutional homes, which is nice. They're in small editions. You can see here the scale of the photography is easy, which was shown and sculpted by the sea in recent years. Next to this little photography is easel. It's got a little eye that's supposed to go on there. I forgot to bring it and put it on. It's got a little reflective eye. If anybody would love this piece, I'll get the eye for you. What else can I say? The art piece over there is called Stop Start, because obviously it's a stop sign with art on it, and obviously because the word start has art within it. And it was also pushing how far can you, does it still read art? You take it right out to the edge and cut those letters in half? Well, yes, it does. Should it have a white border? I don't think so. I'll let you decide. I think Love Slowly was quite interesting. That was a sign I saw that just said, I think it said driveway, meaning go slowly. But somehow I've managed to sexualise the exclamation mark.
We just got the last print of Love Slowly.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So, working with the poetry, I said when I did the show in 1970, does somebody really want to have a poem on the wall? When you look at it, there's a bit of white and there's a bit of text. Are you going to go up and look at that lovingly and go, yeah, I just have to read that poem again? Probably not. So, Chris would. Chris loves poems without decoration. I'm saying that because I'm leaning around towards these prints up here on the wall, which are from a series called Love Poems, which was made in 2007. And you can see I've actually bought pattern papers, which are used by scrapbookers. I don't know exactly what scrapbookers do, but apparently they love to have exotic, colourful papers. They also love to have everything very acid-free and pH neutral, so that was good. So I bought a number of these different patterns and then considered how could I get the foreground and the background, the ground to sort of fight between the text and the, text and image. So in this one, for example, it's very symmetrical with the love part fitting in perfectly. This is done with silver ink, whereas somewhere down there's another one, whereas here it's starting to sort of drift off. It's still contained within the squares. But again, to me, there's great satisfaction in just look. I just love looking at the differences.
Yeah.
With sexes, this is called division of the sexes, because if you put a mirror this way or this way, you get the same reflection. So it's about DNA. But so that's easy to read. This one is almost impossible to read. But when you stare, if this was hung on your wall and the light came at a certain angle, it just pops out and you can see it. I then thought, well, instead of just concrete poems, what about poems? So the series is called Love Poems, and so I did do a couple of love poems of a sort. Again, with this one here, much easier to read here than there, but that's the same poem. This was about my single experience of trying RSVP and going on a date which was just a dinner. But sort of extrapolating on the idea of that, I thought, well, what would a date poem be like? So it says, meeting. We explore each other room by room, like houses coming up for rent. Would I be happy here? Do the windows open easily? Is the bathroom good? And those pictures of previous tenants, do they have to stay? This one, in a similar sort of vein, really. Minds entwine, muscular as bodies, imagined in the midst of old stories, new ideas spring into action. Kiss me, the words say, whispering like teenage lovers in each other's ears. And there's a last one, a third one here, called Morning. This, talking of variations, has also been done as a 150 kilogram basalt crystal with the text engraved. In the freshly unfolded archives of our sleep, all loves undone, in threads weaving slowly, sun's dream, a golden warmth, covers us with morning. That basalt crystal is at Lake Macquarie City Art Gallery. So if you do end up going there, you could go and have a look around and see it. Very recent works like Submerging Artist. It's a dive buoy, of course. And the red and the green pencil are for use underwater. They can work underwater. And of course the green one stands for port and port and starboard. Green for port, right for starboard, just to help the diver. Uru, you might have seen the image of the gigantic kangaroo that was a sculpture by the sea, some of you. It's easy to find on the internet. It was shown at Barangaroo as well. It's just hopped all the way down to Daylesford. It's sitting in a sculpture park an hour or so out of Melbourne. Artwork ahead, end artwork, this one hanging. That's a new work, although it is actually a new version of an old work done in 2004, which you might have seen down by the Sydney Theatre Company. There's a crashed car with a rock on top of it. Transfield wanted to buy that to do a sort of top and tail to their piece. I wasn't very happy because they wanted to say artwork ahead and then there's the artwork and you leave, end artwork. That's the complete opposite. This was designed for art galleries who, it was insisted that any art gallery that owns this piece must have it saying end artwork to the public so that they know that as they enter the art gallery, the art's all finished. And only as they leave does it say artwork ahead. And Maitland Art Gallery is very, very good. They do this every day. They put their sign out, and every day it's in the right direction. You know, I've got a satellite checking. But I did have. So that piece was sort of done and dusted. Interestingly, Transfield bought two, and they didn't buy through a dealer. So was I really going to care if they faced it the wrong way? Nah, it's okay. You do that. Luckily for me, 2 years later, somebody stole both of them. And they contacted me and said, we need them replaced, and we're happy to pay full price. So that's done very well. But anyway, this was recently someone wanted to suspend it, and these were sort of prototypes to see how that would work. I think I'm nearly done. There's a few more works I could talk about, but I don't want to hold you all night. I know that some people have to go. Is there any questions? Or anything? How long did I talk for?
What's
My God.
next? What's next?
What's next? Today I was working on, today I went to visit the site of a gigantic mound that they're building at St. Peter's. I mean, this is absolutely humongous. It'll be a spiral pyramid, and I'm in the running to design the artworks to go up that spiral onto a big flat top. So that was pretty exciting.
Anything else stolen, Richard?
Huh?
Have you had any public art stolen from likes of which you?
Oh no, that's an example. I think public's pretty good. Yeah, I've got, the other thing I did today was I'm redesigning signs for the Powerhouse Museum in Brisbane, because they've got 11 signs, but it's 17 years since I did them. And luckily for me, half of them were stolen, so you're right. Forgot. Half of them were stolen, and the other half had stickers stuck all over them or got faded in the sun.
Seems to be a theme.
So-
Stolen artwork here.
So I get So I get to do the whole job again. I mean, I'm upgrading. I'm doing 6 new signs and 6 replacement signs for Powerhouse. So that's very exciting. The joke there was that I was talking about a big safe which says "Safe Art" on it, which I gave to the Art Gallery of New South Wales, but they lost it. It's 150 kilograms. It's a long story of how it got there, but it was a perfect completion, really. There is no safe art. You know about that, Jim, don't you?
I do.
Yes. So it's been replaced for the Art Gallery of New South Wales, but now the safe, instead of saying "safe art" engraved, it says "unsafe art." They haven't shown it yet, but they've got it, and I'm hoping they will put it on display someday. Yeah. Please take, when you leave, these posters that I've done specially for the show. I've signed them, there's only 100 of them, so please, if you feel like you take a poster, we do have some sticky tape you could put in a tube if you wanted to. I could talk all night, you can tell. I'm very happy to chat. So, but I'll let you be, because, but if you'd like to talk to me, I'm very happy to continue. And I hope Lars might play some more music.
Just wondered, is that your thumbprint chocolate?
Yeah. That's called the Australian Touch. That was done for the originally done for the 1988 bicentennial. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Actually, the Captain Cook poem that's in there from 1979, I just found, Chris spotted it actually in the National Library, poetry book open, at the Captain Cook poem as a part of the Captain Cook exhibition they've got on at the moment.
It's a great exhibition.
Captain Cook considers his fate. When he sailed in, I know this by heart, when he sailed in, his head filled with his mother's warnings, tensing his sea legs, his worry beads worrying, screwing and unscrewing his shining telescope, watching the natives, watching his ship. The full significance of his present reactions escaped him completely. Of course, we know Cook was much wiser than that, but that was written by a 20-year-old or something. And I wrote that earlier than that. I wrote that in 1970, I think.
Whoops. Wow.
Yeah. So, age is great. We keep on keeping on. You should check out the phone sex here. This is a very handy, if anybody likes jigsaw puzzles, this is a quite hard to do jigsaw puzzle, which ends you up with a genuine early internet pornographic image. Yeah, so think about that. Very pixelated. Yeah,
And
so
if you
quite
scrunch up your eyes and put it further.
Yeah.
Not that I've done it.
quite safe for children. Yeah. So that's it, I think. Let's have some music and more drinking. Thanks again, Connie.
Thank you, Richard.
Yeah.
That was beautiful.